Let me talk about the term literary canon in this video. Etymologically speaking, the word canon has been originated in Greek language, and the original meaning of the term is a measuring rod, something which used to measure something. But later this word has been incorporated in Christian terminology, especially in our Christian theological term, in which it designates the accepted books in the Hebrew Bible, the books which are considered holy. So certain works which are considered holy by Catholic Church may not be the holy works of the other categories of religion or Protestants. So there is this contrasting terms. The term canon means the accepted versions of the holy text, whereas apocrypha, there is another term, which are the other books which are not accepted by the authorities. So this is the way in which the word has been used. Even I think even now this term has been used in religious circles. But in literature, in the early days, the term canon has been used to designate the major works of certain writers. For example, when you say Shakespearean canon, you mention or you mean the major works of Shakespeare, or Chaucerian canon, the major work of Chaucer. But in recent years, this term has been changed, and it has widened its scope, and it has been said that it designates most frequently in national literature those authors who, by a cumulative consensus of critics, scholars, and teachers, have come to be widely recognized as major and have written works often hailed as literary classics. In other words, the major writers or in English literature, or the major writers in national literature, according to a consensus of opinion by literary critics, scholars, and all, certain writers will be considered the canonical writers or the major writers. So when we say there are certain major writers, of course there are certain other minor writers. So this is the way in which it has been used for a long time. Okay, canonical works means the major works. And what constitutes what constitute this designation? What is the metrics based on which we can designate somebody as the major writer and the other as non major? So for example, in Samuel Johnson, in his preface to Shakespeare, he says that a century is or can be taken as a yardstick. Means if an author's influence is lasts for a century, he can be considered as a major writer. And F.R. Lewis has written The Great Tradition, talking about the major writers. But later in the modern century, this term has come out with or faced lots of criticism from various critics, like feminist critics or postcolonial critics and Marxist critics. They say that this is not a neutral or very objective way of designating something, because those writers which we now consider as major writers, politics and ideology played a very crucial role in designing who the major writer is. Those writers who satisfy, or those writers who have some kind of an influence in the power structures, will be considered automatically canonical work. So that has a very important dimension in the modern century. And critics like the feminist critics and post-colonial critics, for example, feminist critics says that only the male writers will be considered as canonical writers, or post-colonial critics would say that only those writers who have some colonial agenda will be taken as the canonical writers. So they have come out with their own canon. The feminist canon means the major female writers or women writers, or post-colonial canon, major writers who have defended the colonialist ideology. This is the way in which the term canon is understood at present. Again, there are other dimensions like contrary to the religious canon. For example, when we talk about the religious canon, we know that there is an authority to decide, which works. For example, the Catholic Church, they have certain metrics in order to identify which are the major works in religion. But in contrast to when it comes to literature, there isn't any such authority. So those who are powerful or those who are influential will be taking some kind of a decision, and in certain particular period of time there will be some kind of strategy in order to incorporate certain writers as major writers, certain other writers are as not. For example, T.S. Eliot, during that time, T.S. Eliot or the new critics, they have reintroduced or incorporated John Donne into the canonical text. So once you're part of the canon, it is unlikely that you will be removed from the list of great writers. So in summary, we can say that canon designates the list of major books and the major writers, and it has been subjected to criticism, and it is the way it has been chosen is always related to the politics and ideological and power structures at a given period of time. I hope it is clear. Thank you.